All right, good morning, everybody. This is Greg Town with GT Training Systems. Want to thank you for joining us this morning on this morning's either the webinar or the podcast, depending on how you're joining us today in steps to closing the sale. So, first off, want to thank our sponsor and stuff, GT Training Systems. We are one of the premier training companies for professionals out there that have to not only be skilled in the service of what they provide, but they're also responsible for their own lead generation, or their own marketing, or their own promoting of themselves and stuff. So looking over our attendees list here, I recognize about half the names. The other half I don't recognize, so thank you for those that shared our training and shared our link out there. I greatly appreciate it. That's absolutely one of the best ways that you can help kind of support us. A lot of times I have people reach out to me and go, hey, we used your training, it was so great, or I used this skill and it closed that sale and it got me X amount of thousands of dollars in income. How do I, how do I thank you? And I always tell them, like, share our trainings, share our word out there and stuff. It's my goal is to help, my goal is to help 40,000 people increase their income significantly. So with that, just a little housekeeping and stuff. Any questions that you have, feel free to dump them into our chat box there on the side. I get a little ADD and stuff, so I'm actually going to minimize out my screen on that, and we'll be answering all the questions and stuff that I'll be answering all questions in depth and stuff that come up through the course of this training and stuff once we get everything wrapped up. So I want to share with you. Once our slides decide to start working with us here. There we go. Structure for today's webinar or podcast, depending on how you're joining us, is going to do a quick introduction about me. As I said, I noticed on the attendee list and stuff, I recognize about half the names. The other half I did not recognize. So once again, thank you for sharing our trainings out there. We're going to do about 45 to 60 minutes of awesome, in-depth, powerful training on basically the steps to getting to closing of the sale. This is one of my more favorite podcasts or trainings to do. It is something that's very near and dear to my heart and stuff, because I think I think this is, a lot of people will go into their profession, or they'll go into the sales world, or they'll go into the marketing or promoting, where they're responsible for promoting themselves and stuff. And so few of them actually ever get the true training of, the roadmap and stuff of how to truly accomplish this and stuff. So this is going to give you some really great in-depth training and stuff. We're going to do a quick introduction to our advanced training starting actually next week. I'm amazed how fast it's rolling up on us. And I want to tell you, don't worry, there is no pressure. For those of us that as I tell people, I own 2.5 companies. Well, one of those companies is a real estate team. And the ironic thing is, in the real estate world, is we're always getting pitched. We're always having people coming in offering to do trainings and stuff, but they'll do what I refer to as the dangling of the carrot style training and stuff, where, I'm going to give you like the 30,000 overfoot view. I'm going to give you just enough to incite your interest and whet your appetite. But in order to get the full training, you have to spend $2,000 or $5,000, or I even saw one for $500 and stuff, and come down to Anaheim, California, or Las Vegas, Nevada, or fill in the blank and stuff. Well, that's not my style. My attitude is I want to go give you powerful in-depth training. I actually want to give you the best training that we can absolutely accomplish in the time frame that we have allotted here. And, if, from there, when you determine that you want more training, you want to take your business to the next level or go to the next step, from there, I want you to be, remember, it's like the level and the in-depth training that we provide, so we make an absolute perfect fit for you. And if right now is not the time for you, no worries. There's plenty of ways you can stay connected with us, and get onto our blog list and get our articles and stuff, to get our content, and really just ways for you to get even more free training. And then once you're ready to kind of really just take your level and push it to the next, take your business, push it to the next level, then we're absolutely there for you and stuff. And then, as I said, question and answer, I'll go over all your questions with in-depth answers. And you can ask any question that you want, anything. I know we're here today mostly talking about the sales process and how to get to the closing of the sale and stuff. But we can talk about lead, if you have questions on lead generation. Yesterday we did a session all on social media strategies. We did some awesome in-depth content with that. And then, as many of you know, I'm very big in health and wellness and stuff, and, energy and stuff. You can ask me questions in that aspect and stuff. If I don't know the answer, I've got somebody probably on my phone that I can help get us connected with, and we'll discover that answer together and stuff. So. And first, before we get into the depth of today's content stuff, I first off really want to thank you for taking the time out for joining us and coming on today. For those of you that are on our live session, today is Friday, right before Labor Day weekend and stuff. And so, I mean, I was looking at the news this morning as part of my morning routine is I don't get enthralled with the news, but I watch like the first cycle of the news, just kind of see, hey, what's going on in the world and stuff. Then I jump into my normal morning routines and stuff. And I saw that here in the Tacoma, Washington, or the Seattle, Tacoma, Washington market, which is kind of where my home market and stuff, they're pretty much, saying it's like today traveling on I-5, which is our major interstate that connects everything here in Western Washington. Between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., just expect for it to be backed up and just horrible traffic as everybody's getting a head start and an early jump on their quote-unquote their Labor Day weekend. And it got me thinking in the aspect of, that there's the old saying, it's like, when your competition is sleeping, that's when you need to be, that's when you need to be grinding. When your competition is partying, that's when you need to be training. And, the people that I see on today's webinar and stuff, absolutely, my heart right there with you guys. I mean, it is, you look at the average person, the average person that leads the average lifestyle, that has the average income. They live, for those moments of that Friday afternoon, the Saturday afternoon, the Sunday morning, and then, if it's on a holiday weekend, about Sunday afternoon, they start getting a little bit down and out. They start getting a little bit depressed because they know Monday morning is rolling right around the corner. And I know for those that have joined me for this morning's session and stuff, and for those that are listening on our podcast, either A, you've broken out of that routine, or B, you want to get out of that routine and stuff. And so it really excites me when I see people that are out there is, when the competition is partying and the competition's getting, having fun, that there's a segment of us that are staying in the grind. We're staying committed to perfecting our craft. And so that way we become experts and we become the top level producers in whatever industries or whatever arenas that we work in and stuff. So I'm very excited on that. Anytime you hear me mute out and stuff, it's not that we dropped our audio feed. It's just I'm getting some water into me and stuff. It's kind of funny sitting here in the studios and stuff. I've got the computers in front of me. I've got the microphone off to the side of me. I've been talking all day and stuff, and I find that staying hydrated definitely helps out. But especially after I've done a handful of these sessions and stuff, I kind of need to keep that water going into me and stuff. So anytime you hear the audio kind of blink out and stuff, no need to worry. Nor 9 times out of 10, I'm just getting some liquids back into my body and stuff. So I want to share with you a little bit about myself. Yeah, let's see here. Seems like the slides are a little bit on a delay. Here we go. All right, so who is Greg Towner? All right, well, first and foremost, I'm a top producing real estate broker. As a matter of fact, here in 2016, I was awarded as one of the top 10 real estate brokers in Washington State by the American Institute of Real Estate Professionals. I'm also a published author. I've written the book, Becoming the Friend in the Business, Going from Salesperson to Trusted Advisor. How that book came about and in place was I had a very good friend of mine that said something to the effect of, Greg, I do business with you because you are my friend first, my realtor second. And I sat there and those words just resonated with me. Now, for those of you that are also in the real estate business, or for those of you that are familiar with the real estate business, you understand that real estate is a very transactional type of business. real estate, unlike, for my friends that are in the insurance world and stuff, where you have renewable. So, I mean, most insurance brokers are a lot better at follow-up and staying connected than I see those in the real estate world. Although, ironically, in the real estate world, we get paid, more for the single transaction than the insurance agents do and stuff. But I really kind of looked at this concept and I said, how do we take ourselves away from being transactionally based, people to becoming more relationship based people? And so we started working really intently on becoming on running our business model of that being very relationship based. Well, we experience phenomenal results out of it. This explosive growth. And so our lending partners reached out to us and said, okay, hey, what are you guys doing? Because most lenders will work with more than one realtor. And they noticed that, out of our group and out of our team, that we were just generating more business, and that alongside with the other realtors in our office and other realtors that we're working with and stuff. And as I tell people, it's like there is no great secrets. There's no hidden secret of being successful in business. All the information's out there. It's just who's willing to do the work, who's willing to put in the effort and stuff. Well, what I know from our lenders learning this great information and stuff and sharing it, well, that led to all of a sudden insurance agents, because lenders have to order what's referred to as an insurance binder for for their loans and stuff. So our insurance agents started going, what is going on here and stuff. And so this concept of going more relationship based as opposed to transactional based led into us working within multiple industries and multiple platforms. And everything from moving companies to landscapers to plumbers to electricians to even dentists and chiropractors and attorneys were all reaching out to work with us to learn what we were doing. And that was kind of how GT Training Systems got born, was by becoming one of the premier training companies for somebody that not only has to be an expert in the product or the service that they actually perform for their customer, but they also have to be an expert at the marketing and the promoting of themselves. So, through the course of this, I'm also a small business owner. I've been, the one thing the biggest value I think I bring from my customers, my clientele base in the training platform, is I am right there alongside with you. We are right there. I'm right there in the trenches with you day in and day out. I know the challenges of being a business owner. I know the challenges of the frustrations of being a business owner. I also know what it feels like to be enjoy the success of being a business owner and the freedom of being a business owner. I know that being a business owner is not easy. I know that when you have no safety net, you have no base salary. For those of you that have a base salary, that's great and wonderful, but most people, what I discover, when they have that base salary, that's just a small part of what their income is. They actually bust their butt and they work hard for their commissions or their overrides. It reminds me back in the day when I was in restaurant management. My base salary was just, that to me, that was nothing. Where I based my successes on was what was my bonuses and stuff. How much, and my bonus was all driven off of how much more profit did I make for the restaurant. And, those are the people that I tend to work with the most, those very driving type of personalities that want to be absolute studs and aces in their games and stuff. So, and I'll also share with you what I am not. I am not just a training company. And that also led to, ironically, that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to just form and open the training company, was because, especially in real estate, we have a lot of these gurus that have absolutely no experience of actually being out there in the environment of sales. They're just, selling their training products or their books or their CDs or their downloads, but they don't work day in and day out with the general public and stuff. And so, not to discount or not to downgrade any of those people, But the fact of the matter is they're not in the trenches day in and day out. A lot of times they'll see something or they'll hear something and go, hey, that's a really cool training concept. That's a really cool thing to do. Let's stick that into one of our training programs and stuff. And they've never tweaked it. They've never perfected it. So what we do is when we come across something that's, sounds like it sounds like something that, would really work and give us some success, we take it into our real estate team. And we play with it there. We have multiple people, multiple clienteles that we can kind of practice on, for lack of a better word. We practice internally and stuff, and then we take it to our clientele and stuff, and we tweak it, and we morph it until pretty much we've got it perfected, and then we bring it over to our training company to train to all of our customers and our clients in our training environments and stuff, so that they can then take that and take it into their own personal practice. So the one thing I want to get across here is I know it's not easy being either self-employed or being in sales or being, responsible for, generating your own business or your own deals and stuff. I understand that. I get that. So let's get into the training here. All right, to get the most out of today's webinar, I want you to turn off all distractions. Turn off your cell phones. I'm going to double check mine here. Should already have been, thrown on mute. Yep, that it has. Turn off your emails. I really want you to just kind of unplug for the next, the next hour or so, just so that you get the most out of today's, experience. Get out a pen and paper and take notes. I never trust my financial future to purely just my memory. And as I always tell people, listen fast because I talk fast. I may have to slow down a little bit as our slides are catching up with us today and stuff. As long as technology is working for us, today's session is being recorded. It will be put onto our YouTube channel. For those of us watching us there, feel free to share the content. Feel free to please subscribe to our channel and stuff. But as long as technology works with us and stuff, we will be uploading this. So, step one. Basically the roadmap of closing the sale and stuff is you have to get your attitude in check. Before all else, how is your attitude and your manners or feelings about your expectations? How are you dressing? I share with you a kind of a funny story is I had in my real estate practice about a year, maybe 2 years ago now, 2 years ago now actually, I had this one couple that I was representing. They were purchasing a home. The husband, ironically, was a real estate broker in 2005, 2006. Now, for those of you that remember 2005, 2006, if you were in real estate, you pretty much were guaranteed to be six-figure income unless, unless you were just kind of, unless you had no business savvy whatsoever. I'll be nice and put it at that. And so, he really felt like he was an expert because he used to be a licensed real estate broker. Well, for 2 years, which basically told me that he never renewed his license. Well, through the course of this, I discovered that he only sold 2 houses, one of which was to his mom. Now, in real estate, we always tell you your first batch of friends and family, if it's within your first 10, 20 deals, those are sacrificial lambs. Those are literally sacrificial lambs. They do not count. They should not count. And so, to me, it's like he realistically only did one deal. And he used to tell me, it's like, and he told me, it's like, I used to always wear shorts, flip-flops, and a Hawaiian shirt. That was my dress code when I was in real estate. And I found it interesting, and I was like, well, how did your customers take it? He said, well, most of them said that they didn't like the way I dressed, and I would always tell them, it's like, hey, you're here to buy the house, you're not buying me. And that's where I have to say bullshit, and that's why he never renewed his license, and that's why he never went forward and became successful in real estate, was because, his attitude was not there to serve with his customers. His attitude was, his attitude was just, his attitude was crap, is what it boils down to. So, I mean, are you mentally ready? I mean, it is, yeah, if your attitude is not ready, if your attitude is crap, it does not matter anything else you do. It does not matter. If, I mean, a good friend of mine, Bill Duquette over in Florida and stuff, I love the phrase. He said, hey, if the coconut's not ready, nothing else will apply. So you have to absolutely get your attitude in check and talk a little bit about this morning about morning routines and stuff. And part of my morning routine is, I have I've got one of those smart TVs that has an app on it and stuff. So I have I'll go through it and I'll watch YouTube, and I have a handful of different channels, a handful of different people that I subscribe to and stuff. Basically, business development, motivations, good stuff like that. Why do I do that? Why do I do that? Why is that part of my morning routine? Is I want to get my attitude in check. I want to always kind of help make sure that that's working for me and stuff. So. Step number 2, now we're getting into actually more of the face-to-face of, once we meet with somebody and stuff, is the greeting. This is what to say and, more importantly, what not to say. This is your first opportunity to how you build rapport, get on common ground, and build respect. It is, nothing irritates me, nothing irritates me more than when I go into a retail establishment to buy something, and there is no, their sales staff, there is no greeting, there is no rapport building. Literally, it almost feels like I'm inconveniencing them. So you really have to stop and think, okay, that, your greeting is your first opportunity. It's your first chance for you to build rapport with your prospective customer, your prospective client. You do not have a second chance. If you screw this up, it's not like you can do the rewind button and do a do-over and stuff. You have to, and that's why this is the second, this is the second step, is that's why you have to have your attitude in check. You have to be ready to, to be on your A game and stuff. So absolutely, you want to make sure that anytime you interface with the public, interface with your customers, your attitude's in check so that your greeting is in check. So step number 3, this is what we call the fact-finding step. In just about any type of industry and stuff, we have, this is where we start looking into how do we serve, how do we take care of the customer here. So, fact-finding is nothing more than the questions that are asked, that is wanted, that is critical, so the buyer can put, critical to the buyers, so you can put your buyers in the right product or service. In real estate, we always have this phrase, buyers are liars. Anybody in my real estate, any of my fellow realtors out there and stuff, they've all heard this time and time and time and time again. Well, I'm gonna correct you on that. I'm gonna give you some insight on it. Buyers are not liars. They just don't know what product they want, and the reason is because as most of our industries become more and more technology based, people can kind of Google and they can do their own research, and so they'll walk in and they think, oh, this is the project, or this is the service, or this is what I want, or this is what I need, and they don't quite know that everything that's available for them out there and stuff. So if you skip the fact-finding session, then you're not a sales pro, you're not a consultant, you're not anything other than just an order taker. And I don't care what your business is. You can be an attorney. If you don't do the fact-finding step, you're nothing more than just an overpriced order taker and stuff. So very, very key, important. I mean, this is where this is really truly how you start serving your customer. This is how you start serving your client, as opposed to just being, as opposed to just being an order taker. And honestly, this is how people start realizing that you really truly care for them, and you really truly are there for them and stuff. So. From fact-finding, we start building what's called a buyer's profile. Now, depending on your industry, they may have an asset that they need to trade in, or they may need to sell so they can purchase their new asset. A lot of times in real estate, this is what we call a listing. In the automotive world and stuff, a lot of times people will trade in a car, or they have to sell a car before they can buy a car. And so kind of depending on your industry and stuff, this may apply to you, this may not apply to you, but it's still going into building up that buyer profile. So from doing your fact finding, allows you to kind of see what needs are they need to meet, what are wants are they needing to meet, and so this will help you in building up the selection, selecting the products and stuff in the demonstration, so you're able to get the buyer closer to the right product or service. Honest to God, understanding your buyer profile, understanding your client profile and your client's needs is vital to the negotiation so that you know how to structure this transaction to where it absolutely makes sense for them, because the dirty little secret in sales closing is if I'm solving a problem, if I'm solving a need, there is no special manipulative technique that is needed. I'm solving a problem, I'm solving a need. And I have to go through these steps to discover what's the true problem, what's the true need that I need to solve. And then at that point, the closing's easy. There is really there's no such thing as a hard close within that aspect and stuff, because I'm solving their problem. I'm taking care of their need. But I need to go through these steps to truly discover what need or product, problem I'm solving, so that I can structure this, for quote unquote, most people think is the closing time and stuff, but so that I know how to structure this to where makes sense for everybody involved. From that point, we go into the selection. This is getting them to the right product or products or services for the buyer, for their wants and needs. Now, through the course of this, sometimes this is sometimes a little bit of testing the water and stuff. You want to make sure that you're on the right product and stuff. And there's a couple steps here that that you'll see that we're truly testing the products. We're testing the waters and stuff. But I mean, it is going from their fact finding and going into their profiling and stuff that leads us into being able to start selecting and helping them choose what's going to be the best product or services that's going to take care of their needs and stuff. So from the selections, we go into the demonstrations. The demonstration mode, this is the time to show them the features and the benefits. And I want you to demonstrate your product or service in a manner that creates urgency and a desire for the ownership for now. People want their problems taken care of now. It is, anybody that's got a problem, think of any problem that you may have. Do you want it solved and taken care of now, or do you want it solved and taken care of next year? More than likely, it's probably something you want taken care of and solved now. And so your key element is understanding one of your key elements is truly understanding what your product or service is and how to effectively demonstrate that, so that you're basically showing how that's going to solve their product, so that it's going to solve their product, or correction, it's going to solve their problem or their needs, and be able to use it, demonstrate it in a way of that it creates the urgency that they want it now. So a lot of times within real estate, this is kind of what we refer to as showing homes. That's our demonstration phase. In the attorney world and stuff, it is basically showing them, the end result of once they get through whatever legal challenges that they happen to be in. In the moving world and stuff, this is kind of demonstrating the ease of hiring your company so they don't need to worry about having to drive or pack or whatever steps that you're solving and stuff for them that you discover that you needed to take care of in their in your fact-finding session. So from step 6 in demonstration, now we go into the trial close. Now this is very, very key and very, very important. This step is going to test exactly where your buyer is at in their ownership process. This is also really going to truly help, are you on the right product, and how close are they to purchasing the product or service. If your trial close goes good and they're ready to close, you go straight to the closing and stuff. If they're not, then you know that, okay, either you haven't demonstrated enough of the value to them, or you're on the wrong product and stuff. And so from that aspect, that's where you need to kind of determine, am I on the right product? Do I need to take them a product up? Do I need to take them a product down? Or do I need to, do we need to go a little bit more into the features and the benefits of this product or service? And then from that aspect, be able to make sure that I'm matching it up with their needs and wants and desires. From the title close, then we go into what I refer to as the servicing step. Now, this step here kind of floats around. Most of the steps I'm going to recommend that you do them in the order that I've got them here and stuff. This, what I call the servicing step, this one kind of floats around and stuff. And depending on your industry is really good. Depending on your industry or your product or your service, really is going to depend on where this step goes into play, how the step gets applied and stuff. So basically, the key element and what I'm seeing with most of the consumers out there is they know that they have a choice. They don't need to go to a particular real estate firm for their real estate needs. They don't need to go to a particular attorney for their legal needs. They don't need to go to a particular moving company for their moving needs. They don't need to go to a particular dentist for their dental needs. Unless you're in a really, really small town and you're the one person in that town that handles that industry and stuff, people realize that they have a choice now. They have options and stuff, and especially as more fluid as people have become and stuff. I mean, it is there was a day and age where people didn't go more than 10 miles in any one direction and stuff. Now people will go 100 miles in any one direction. So the servicing is going to show how you're going to continue to service them and take care of them after the purchase. This is really going to show them the strength of your company, that you're going to be there for them. And the key element here is it shows them that you're not just there to sell them, but you're also there to service them. You're also there to take care of them. A lot of times I kind of refer to them as the service walk. Really you're going to show it's like, okay, after the sale is done, that you're not just going to pop smoke and disappear and like a traveling salesperson or snake oil salesman and stuff, you're going to be in the next town over and stuff. But it's going to show you it's like how you're really truly going to be there for the long haul for them. So a lot of times in the moving company and stuff, I'll see it's like in this step is, this is where they'll address, okay, and hey, I find that it's better for us to address the hard conversations. If we bring it up, we kind of we diffuse them as far as using this for a reason not to work with us. We take away their objection and stuff. So, I find it ironic a lot of times, especially I see in moving companies where, they don't want to talk about it. There's a damage. If anything gets damaged in shipping and stuff, if anything gets damaged while it's en route. Well, hey, let's face facts. Shit happens. Stuff happens and stuff. So this is a prime example where to talk about. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about, in the unlikely event something was to get damaged. How are we going to get it taken care of for you and stuff? Think about when you go get a rental car and stuff. This is part of their servicing and stuff. Is when they start talking about the roadside assistance or their additional insurance or stuff like that. They're having those upfront conversations that they know because stuff happens. And they're kind of proving their value there. And ironically for the car rental companies, this gives them a chance to kind of do some upsells and stuff, in the aspect itself. Very, very key, vital part of the sales process here is talking about how you're going to service them. This step here really should take no more than an initial 5, maybe 10 minutes to tie into your presentation. But and depending on and sometimes depending on your customer and stuff. Also, it's just I had one client in our real estate firm that's an attorney. She wanted to know how are we going to take care of, how are we going to structure the purchase and sale agreement, how are we going to take care of, make sure that all of our contingencies are being put in place. So she wanted to know, it's like, how are we going to what are we going to put into place for warranties and stuff? How are we going to service her and make sure that she's properly taken care of and stuff? So this kind of jumped, with her, I actually jumped the servicing portion earlier on into the presentation, where normally I hold it off to the, later into the presentation and stuff. So depending on your industry, really is going to, in your customers, really going to determine how this particular plan, this particular step goes into process and stuff. So for the servicing, we go into the write-up. Vital, vital, vital. Absolutely key. I want you to write up everybody. Now, even for those of you that say, well, we don't write up people in my industry. Bullshit. Somehow you write up a proposal, you write up something to start getting agreement stuff. Your write-up is, basically this is going into your proposal, and this is your element of entering into negotiations. I want you writing up every, any type of sales, position that you are in. And guess what? For you dentist people out there and stuff, you're in sales too. You're selling your services and stuff. I want you to understand the key element here is the write-up. It's where you start actually drafting up how you're going to take care of this person's problems, how you're going to service them, how you're going to take care, how you're going to take care of their needs and stuff. Very, very element step. And I see so many people, they fail in this step. And I want you to make sure you understand how do you put in the write-up stage into no matter what you do. From the write-up stage, we go into the negotiation stage. Now, most people, this is probably the most misunderstood step in the sales process and stuff. Most people think that this is where they have to, the negotiations means they have to take a cut in price or a discount. Wrong. Negotiations is purely the step where you get agreement for all parties that are involved. Let's think about this for a second. If a particular deal or transaction does not make sense for you or the company you represent, then it should not be done. Just as simple as for your customer, your prospect, for any transaction or anything that they do, for the transaction or items that they, for the deal or that you're presenting them, if it doesn't make sense for them, then they shouldn't do it. So your negotiations are key elements in your negotiations are key elements in basically getting an agreement for all those that are involved. And step 11, that's when we go into the close. I want you to start using specific technology and language to get agreement and actions that to exchange things of value for each other. This is the key element. This is truly where the close is going into place. And you know what, though, as I shared with you, the ironic thing is as long as you're doing, as long as you've done a good job of the steps leading up to this, your fact finding, your product selection, your demonstrations, your buyer profile, the close is a very, very easy concept. And I find it so ironic. It's like everybody wants to know these powerful closing techniques, but they don't want to take the time to learn the strategies and the techniques leading up to that aspect and stuff. Well, you have to put in this roadmap here. You have to follow the steps here to get you up to the closing technique, the close, because until, if you're not solving their product or if you're not solving their problem or their need, then your close is going to be very faulty. Or you're going to use a very manipulative type of close. And the problem with using manipulative types of closing is sooner or later you're going to get the reputation of being manipulative, or your firm's going to get the reputation of being manipulative, and then factor in also the aspect of that, going from that, factor in also is you're going to start having a lot of chargebacks or returns or cancellations. So, this is not, you do not want to use manipulative techniques in this aspect. You want to, how you don't use manipulative techniques is by using the following steps coming up into here and stuff, so that you can go in and use an effective close. From the close, we go into delivery. Key element and stuff here. Most people think their job stops at the close. No. There's still a few more steps here. The delivery is one of those key elements. I want to deliver your product or service so the customer is happy and it understands 100% how to use the product or the service. We recently brought in a CRM, a new contact relationship management software and stuff with my team and stuff in here. Actually, within the last couple of weeks and stuff, because our training on that was after one of the trainings that we just like one of these types of trainings and stuff. And I was really impressed with this company because they didn't just sell us the software; they also set up a training session for it, and keep in mind, within the software and stuff, there's a ton of videos and stuff and how-tos and stuff. But on top of that, they actually set up a live training session, very similar like this and stuff, a virtual training session and stuff for myself and my team so that we would understand fully how to utilize and use their software and stuff so that we would get the most value out of it. I loved that aspect. I mean, that was, in all honesty, that was actually unexpected because we looked at several different, CRM platforms and stuff. this was the one, I mean, it was completely unexpected. It was actually nowhere into their sales, their sales presentation, thing like that. It was actually after we had made the commitment to go with them and stuff. So, and, in that aspect of stuff, it made me absolutely ecstatic and happy to, that I'd made a decision with them and stuff. So great for them. It was great closing technique and retention technique. And that kind of goes into the higher satisfaction of the stage equals the higher repeat and referral that you're going to get from this, from this customer or their client. And so from the delivery stage, we go into the follow-up stage. And yes, this is absolutely part of the sale. Follow-up is a key element to building your practice, to building your business. And this is how you creatively stay in touch with the customers to ensure they continue satisfaction and they come back to you for their next product or service need, and they refer their friends and families to you. How do you follow up? Well, you utilize a different, varying amount of strategies and stuff. Phone, emails, videos, and personal visits are all part of the follow-up and stuff. I mean, depending on your industry out there, the numbers are going to change, but the one common thread is every single industry out there, it is cheaper to retain a customer than to get a new customer and stuff. So this is a key element within your roadmap to closing of the sale is you have to maintain a follow-up. And unfortunately, this is where I see so many people fall off and stuff. And so they may be in business for 5 years or 10 years, but basically what they're doing is they're recreating their first year in business for the next 5 or 10 years and stuff until they understand the key elements of being able to follow up. So I want you to understand something. Success is never owned. It is rented, and the rent is due daily. You have to take daily actions to achieve and keep success. There is no, just because you were successful last week, yesterday, last week, last month, or last year does not guarantee that you're going to be successful tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. You have to do daily activities to keep and maintain your success. The greatest sports teams out there train regularly to achieve success. We just recently had the Olympics and stuff, and we saw world-class athletes that had trained a lifetime to perform at that level. And, it's not like somebody just woke up one morning and said, hey, I think I'm going to go be an expert gymnast and I'm going to go compete in the Olympics tomorrow and stuff. No, they practiced, they worked, they paid for that success day in and day out. Every top producer or performer in your industry has a coach or mentor along with a game plan that they use to stay on top of the game. Myself personally, I actually have 2 coaches. That is, because that's the level of success that I am going after and stuff. But each one of my coaches, they handle two different areas of my business career and stuff. But they help hold me accountable. I jokingly tell people, it's like if you're truly only holding yourself accountable, the market will spank you. The market will punish you. You have to have elements in there that hold you accountable. And the number one investment you can truly make is, in all honesty, is in yourself. If you're not making at least 7 figures a year in income, you have to be investing in yourself as one of your key elements. So, I apologize for those of you that are eating lunch or something like that aspect and stuff, but this is one of my most favorite pictures out there to really just drive down this, drive this element into place. And then, this is one of those key pictures out there. It's like, are you committed or are you interested? So, a very good friend of mine was a ballerina. She grew up as a ballerina. She had, she had kids, became a ballerina mom, and now her daughters are ballerina dancers and stuff. And we've all seen ballerinas, we've all seen professional dancers, we've all seen how the grace of how they just literally, they float across the stage. No effort, it seems effortless. They glide across the stage, they float across the stage just in beautiful harmony and stuff. We've all seen that, we've all experienced that. And we sit there and go, wow, that's so gorgeous. They do that just so easily. And what we see is the ballerina shoe that's on the right. The picture perfect, the flawless, the just gliding past you and stuff, the no effort ballerina show. And so it's like, it's one of those, they do it so well that it looks easy. But what we don't realize is getting up to that point is the ballerina foot on the left, showing, the struggles and the practice and the commitment and the time and the the energy and the work and stuff to put in, to so that she can she can be that ballerina on the right hand side. What my friend shared with me is that most of the dancers will spend, a good chunk of their early life, 10 plus years to hopefully, maybe, potentially, possibly get on a stage of, to them, of great notoriety and stuff. And so, I mean, if you think about it, it's like how, so I mean, you really have to stop and think here about your own personal business and stuff. Are you truly committed, or are you just interested? Are you truly committed to becoming one of the pros, one of the top players, one of the go-to people, one of the industry standards? Are you truly committed, or are you just interested? Are you just playing around? If you're playing around, then be honest about it and stuff. But if you're truly committed, if you're truly there to be one of the top performers and one of the top producers, then you really have to look into, dial into, okay, what am I doing? Am I, are my actions showing that I'm truly committed, or are my actions showing that I'm interested? So I want to understand the business builder's game. Sometimes I get people that will get upset at me because I refer to their business as a game, and and I get that. I understand that your business is not just a game. Your business is how you put a roof over your head. It's how you put food on your table. It's how you provide for your family. Trust me, nobody gets that and understands that more than I do. As I said, I'm a business owner. I'm right there, right alongside with you and stuff. But I use the analogy of the game as far as, okay, what are you being a top performer? Are you being a top producer? Are you at the top of your level within your game? If you looked at your industry and stuff, are you like one of those people, one of those people that, when they look at your industry, you're one of the first names that they pop into and stuff. And so within that, in everything that we do, everything, in our business world, there are activities. Now, our activities will either help lead us into income-producing items, or activities will take us away from income-producing items and stuff. So I really want you to kind of dial in and look at, what are the activities that I'm doing day in and day out? The activities I'm doing, are they generating leads? Are the activities I'm doing bringing fresh blood, bringing business into my sphere and stuff? Now, all of us know that we can do lead generation, and all of us know that we have to work within those leads. There's a pipeline, there's a funnel and stuff. We take those leads, we cultivate them into getting appointments, and so from those leads is where we get the appointments made. And I don't think anybody out there, if you've been in business for more than a year, I find it hard to believe that 100% of your appointments are 100% appointments conducted and stuff. 9 times out of 10, stuff comes up, life comes up, crap comes up and stuff. So from your appointments, one of the techniques that I use is when I'm making an appointment with a new lead and stuff, is I'll ask them, like, hey, do me a favor, go take a look in your calendar right now. Is there anything in there that you see that may possibly potentially conflict with this appointment? Is there any reason you don't see that we would be able to keep this appointment? I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm checking for, hey, are they truly interested? Are they truly, are they truly committed and stuff? And number two is, I want them to really kind of take a look and and see, it's like, is there anything in there? And I want this appointment to make it into their calendar, because in my world, in my life, if something doesn't make it onto my calendar, it doesn't happen. So from your appointments made, that leads into your appointments conducted. Well, out of your appointments conducted is where you start finding your clients. And I want your business to be strong enough and good enough to where you don't need to take everybody that comes in through your door as a client. I want your business to be strong and powerful enough that you don't need everybody that walks in. You don't want everybody that walks in. Nothing is more satisfying than looking at somebody and saying, you know what, you're not the right client for us. And the fact that I have 15 people standing behind you at my front door wanting to get in tells me even more that you're not the right client for us. And, be good with that. Be happy with that. And so for your contracts, that's where you get your contracts and stuff. That's how you get paid. And, it's so I want you to look at, okay, what are your numbers? And so a lot of times when I'm working with somebody one-on-one and stuff, and they say, okay, well, what are your numbers? What do you want to accomplish? What's the income you want to hit? And so then we'll take a look into If they want to make X amount of dollars per year, okay, well, great. Now let's start working our numbers. And how we work our numbers is, okay, if we want to make X amount of dollars per year, how much is each one of your contracts on average worth? Or how much is every one of your closings worth? How much is, your unit, your widget that you either sell or your product or your service, how much is that worth and stuff? Okay, great. Well, so now we know how many closings you need to have. From there, how many clients do you need to have to get your closings? Because unfortunately, not all of our clients will lead into direct closings and stuff. In real estate, we have buyers, the agency, buyers that, that they don't buy, something happens, they fall out of qualifications or they move out of the area, and we have listings that don't sell. It's just, it's the fact of the matter is we know just because we get an agreement doesn't mean that we're going to get an income, payment out of it. So from those, clients you need, now how many appointments do we need to conduct to get those clients? As you see, we're kind of working our way back up the chain and stuff. Okay, so how many appointments do we need to make so we can have those appointments conducted? Well, how many leads do we need to generate to get those appointments, and what are the activities we need to do to generate those amount of leads? So as we're going through, I want you to look at this, and I want you to either screenshot this or come back into our web podcast of this, and really look into this and really kind of look at what are your numbers and really dial into what your numbers need to be. So last thing I do every day is I do some daily planning and reflecting. I deal with the realities. I cut out the crap. I look at what were my activities the last 8, 10, 12, 16, 18 hours. I really look into, in depth. It's like, okay, judging on the activities that I did the day prior, would I hire myself or would I fire myself? And I really want you to go deep into this. I really want you to look into the realities of this. Am I telling you that I win every single day, that I win 100% of my days? Honestly, no, I don't. I wish I could tell you that I did, but if I did, I'd be bullshitting you. I don't think anybody out there absolutely wins 100% of their days. But you know what? I win 98, 99% of my days. I win a good chunk of the majority of my days. And by doing that, is because I go into and I have my activities. I have my follow-ups. I have my stuff that I know that I need to accomplish. I have my non-negotiables that I need to accomplish for me to be able to sit there and go, okay, these are the items I need to make sure it gets done. So it's a winning day. So, and that is, are you operating the highest and best use of your time? It is, are you doing activities that, that get you great training? Are you doing activities that get you the group, so that you can do, get the quality leads and stuff? Or are you sitting around watching television all day, eating bonbons? Let's just be realistic here and stuff. One of those types of activities is going to get you paid. One of those activities that would mean that you would hire yourself. The other type of that activity is going to mean that you would fire yourself. So I want to share with you a little bit about our next level training coming up, which is our 90-day Business Accelerator Bootcamp coming right around the corner here. Amazed how fast this is popping into us and stuff. So my goal within this, for those that want to join us for our 90 days, is we're going to absolutely fast track your business and explode your business growth and get you into the next level of success. We're going to go in depth in how to generate leads. We're going to go in depth with how to follow up with those leads, because the ironic thing is if all you do is generate leads and you never follow up with those leads, it's crap. It's bullshit. And the thing that, and any of us out there, we've experienced that to where, hey, we went out and did some lead generation and then we got busy or we got preoccupied with something else. And then we went back to that group of leads and stuff and we discovered that somebody would, we discovered that somebody in there that we thought we were doing some good building relationship with went and bought that product or service from somebody else. And if that feels, if you've ever felt that pain, you know how horrible that pain feels and stuff. So all you're doing is just generating leads, but you have nothing in place to follow up with them. You're losing traction and stuff. We're going to talk about we're going to go in depth and how to convert those leads into paying clients or customers. We're going to get really in-depth with lead generation type systems. We're going to go in-depth with how to utilize your social media and how to utilize your social media as a platform to be able to not only stay connected, but also to look for cultivating future business activities and stuff. We're going to really dive deep into getting into your referral services, your referral sources, and going into various closing techniques as far as, do I need to use a product closer? Do I need to use a a service close, or do I, what type of closing techniques out there and stuff. We're going to go in depth of how to utilize your phone, how, not just how to use your phone, but how to use your phone to make you money. I look over my phone right now and stuff, and I mean, literally off of that phone, we do several millions and millions of dollars a year in real estate sales purely off of that phone, and our training company does about $500,000 to $600,000 a year off of sales purely off of a phone. Your phone's going to be one of your best friends out there. And as I said, we're going to get really intentional, really in depth of building up your follow-up systems so that you stay and connected with all these people, with your leads and stuff. You stay connected mostly, more importantly, with your clients and stuff. So part of that also is a bonus session. As many of you know, I'm very big in health and wellness and stuff, so we're going to talk about weight loss. We're going to talk about weight management. We're going to talk about living in your optimal health. We're going to talk about your energy management. As I tell people, if the majority of your income from your profession or your job comes from either what you produce, or if you get a really good, if you get kind of a base salary, but the bulk of your income comes off of your bonuses, your commissions, your overrides and stuff, you get paid mostly on how you perform and how you produce. You don't just get paid for showing up and spending 8 hours or 10 hours at an office and stuff. You get paid on what you actually perform and produce. You literally have to look at your energy management. That is the same as far as a professional athlete. Think about it. Last time that you were at a networking event, and it was at the end of the day, it was like an after hours or something like that, and you saw somebody in there that literally looked like death warmed over, and they just wanted to go home and crawl into bed. How many people wanted to go over there and kind of talk to that person and network with that person? Normally, the only people that wanted to go over there were those that were also in a crummy mood and had no energy. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum and stuff, and you see the person there that they're the life of the party and stuff. They're alive, they're vibrant, they're happy. How many people just naturally want to get attracted to that person and stuff? So I want you to, there are certain things that I do day in and day out to make sure that my energy stays on its peak performance all through the day. And for those of you with families and stuff, nothing sucks worse than anything else than giving it your all for your, however many hours you're working that day, 8, 10, 12, or what have you, going home, seeing your kids, and being nothing more than an armchair dad or an armchair mom. That sucks. That's not a lifestyle. So, that's why I'm so big in this aspect and stuff. We're talking about we're going to talk about health and wellness. We're going to talk about, nutrition, diets, activities, supplements. We're going to talk about certain things, sleep. We're going to talk about things that I do, day in and day out, week in and week out to keep my energy level up so that, I'm going to share with you exactly what we do so that you can do that day in and day out to keep your energy level up so you're operating 100% at your optimum performance. So each week is going to be between 60 to 120 minutes, 1 to 2 hours of live in-depth, training. And I want you to understand, this is live training. This is not a recorded training. This is absolutely, very similar to what's going on right now. We're going to go very in-depth with every single question and answer that you have out there. We're also going to have a private Facebook group with just boot camp members, answering your questions, networking. This is a great way to mastermind. And ironically, I tell people, my best growth relationships have come from masterminds absolutely just like this. We're going to do weekly action items. This is truly a boot camp style training. A handful of you know I'm an Army vet. This is how I know how to train people and stuff. You're given assignments and you're held accountable to your assignments. You're going to have an accountability buddy and stuff. Execution is the heartbeat of your business. The second it stops is the second your business begins to die. If you're not doing activities that lead to your business growing and building, your business is going to naturally start dying. The last thing you ever want in your business to ever do is to go flatline or stagnant. Anytime I see that, I'm constantly looking at our numbers and stuff. And anytime that I see that we're going stagnant or we're dying, to me, it's like we're dying. We need to pick up the tempo and stuff. So the ironic thing is we live in this crazy world where people get themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. They'll spend 4+ years of their lives to get an education, to get a fancy piece of paper on the wall. And before you think I'm knocking college educations, I have one of them, college degrees and stuff. And very rarely will they ever learn the skills necessary of how to build and promote their business so they can become successful. It is. I find it. This huge irony is that people will go and they'll work hard. They'll go through trainings. They'll get professional licenses. They'll get professional endorsements, but very rarely do they actually get classes of how to actually make themselves successful in their practice, so that they can be a successful whatever you are and stuff. I always find that huge. I mean, I find that just so ironic and stuff. For an extremely small amount of money, you'll learn the necessary skills along with get the coaching on how to create a business and market plan that will help you generate 7+ figures a year. So, this 90-day boot camp with hardcore in-depth coaching plus interaction with the Inside Facebook group along with daily access to me. If you were to come to me and say, Greg, I want this level of service, I want this level of training one-on-one from you, it would easily be $60,000. If you went to any other top producing trainer out there and stuff, and you ask them for, hey, I want this, 90 days, 90-day plus of in-depth, hardcore, one-on-one, I want you to revamp my entire business. I want you to accelerate us. I want you to push us through easily. Any of the other top level, coaches out there, it's going to be $60,000. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm not charging $60,000, not even charging $6,000. If you go onto our website and you see our 90-day Business Accelerator Bootcamp is $1,497, just under $1,500 for that much, for that level of service and training and stuff. But I like those that are willing to kind of jump on board. I like those that are willing to take action and stuff. And so during the course of where we were doing these trainings and stuff is we're actually dropping that price down to $997. Especially, I love it when people have already gone through some of our free webinars and stuff or some of our free podcasts. And the reason being is because, if you've gone through our free trainings and stuff, you're already kind of into that groove and stuff. I mean, we're able to kind of hit you even faster and stuff. So the entire program is just $997. And absolutely, for those of you that are concerned, absolutely, we're going to have a money-back guarantee and stuff. Anybody that has worked with me before in my real estate business or my coaching business or my consulting business, you know that I back up my actions with performance guarantees. And here's our performance guarantee with this program stuff is within 30 calendar days of our last training session, if you have done the work, you've attended each session, you complete and show that you've done all the homework, all the action steps, the weekly commitments, and you feel that this program is not worth every penny, I will refund you the full amount and you get to keep all the content. That's the degree of commitment that I have for this training material. This is the exact same training material that I take from my real estate team that companies have hired me to bring into their teams and into their organizations and stuff. So, as I said, I promise you with 100% certainty this will be the best investment that you've made in your career. Our boot camp starts this coming Wednesday, actually next week, Wednesday, September 7th. We meet 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You see the other time frames and stuff there and stuff. So think about it, $997. What does that break down to? Well, it breaks down to about $11 per day. So if you decide to pack your lunch every day for the next 90 days, together the savings alone will have covered the training. So this slide's a little bit out of date and stuff. It was, so to register, go to gregttrainings.com, go to our product or service page, look for the buy now option. We've already automated it down to the $997, so that way you can get in, get registered up and stuff. So with that, I'm going to take a quick swig of water here. All right, I'm going to open up our chat window box here to see what questions have come in and stuff. So let me take a look here. How do I do a buyer profile as a chiropractor? Okay, that's, I'm going to share with you a story. There's one girl that I was dating. She was a chiropractor, and I was a realtor at the time. And we were comparing what we had, we were comparing our incomes and stuff. And she was actually pretty upset that, my income had surpassed hers because she was, quote unquote, she was a doctor. She was a doctor of chiropractic care. She was a trained professional. She had a college degree. And I kind of sat there and went, hey, wait a second, I've got one of those college degrees too myself. And, she was actually upset because she was like, you're in sales and I'm this professional and you make more money than me. And I was like, yeah, welcome to the world of economics and stuff. But I asked her, it's like I said, I told her, I was like, ultimately we're all in sales. And she disagreed with me on that aspect. And so I asked her, it's like, okay, well, think about this. Okay, you have a patient that comes in. They just were in an automobile accident. You sit down with them, you do your x-rays, you do your initial evaluations. In this aspect and stuff, we kind of refer to this as the fact finding. You know, then we start. Then you're evaluating that and stuff. And then then you're building up a program and stuff. So it kind of goes into your buyer profile and stuff. I said, but the horrible thing is unfortunately their insurance coverages will not cover for them for their entire course of their treatment. What do you do? And so she sat there and said, well, I sit down with them. I go over in depth of what our findings are with their x-rays and stuff. We talk about what where their pain levels at. We build up a program and stuff to get them back into their optimal health. Build up a program to get them back as healthy as we can get them. I kind of sat there and sounds like a great sales presentation to me. Ironically, I slept that night on the sofa. But it is so I mean it's how you build your buyer profile. That's going to go back into your fact finding. That's going to go into your initial consultation with your patient and stuff. Obviously, nobody goes into the chiropractor's office because, hey, we feel really, really good, and I just want to go visit my chiropractor. None of us do that. I've got a good friend of mine. He's my chiropractor, so none of us do that and stuff. And so really kind of how you build your buyer profiles, what is the pain, what's the discomfort, what has led them into you, and then also more importantly, what is their commitment level to getting out of that pain or out of that comfort or out of that discomfort and stuff. So that's going to be one of the aspects of how you look at it with your particular industry of how do you build up that buyer profile and stuff. So. How important is the service walk in the real estate world? One of my realtor buddies out there and stuff. It is the servicing portion of it, or kind of what I refer to as the service walk, depending on your industry and stuff. That's going to talk. How are you going to take care of them? How are you going to be there for them? One of the techniques that I utilize is I have a resource directory. So I have a group of businesses, people that I know both in the real estate world, contractors and stuff, and outside of the real estate world. One of those would be like an automotive repair company and stuff that I trust. These are people that I trust and I endorse. I do not charge them to go into my resource directory. That's a key element. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, just because depending on your state, compliance can be a pain in the ass. And number two is if all of a sudden somebody in there, like one time a personal trainer, him and I had a pretty significant falling out and stuff. If I was charging him to be in my book, now it turns into that awkward thing of, okay, now I have to endorse him because, I accepted money from him, yet I would no longer go personally see him and stuff. Well, his card immediately got yanked out of all of our books and stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of a key element is, so, I mean, that's just one of the aspects of showing, okay, that we're going to be there servicing them. We're going to be there staying, for them and stuff. And I mean, it is, for a real estate practice, I want our clients to think of us not only when they have a real estate need, but when they have any type of need. One of the ways that we service them is, we make sure they understand that, our team has very well connected, has a lot of resources. Whatever the problem is, let us know so that we can help you take care of it. So that's one of those aspects and stuff. See here. Can I make payments on the training? Absolutely. So go through our messaging system on our website and stuff. Send us a message that you want to do payments. We can do 3 monthly payments, $333 a month. We just have to set it up on an invoicing system and stuff, so we have to do it a little bit differently and stuff as opposed to the pay now function and stuff. So absolutely. Let me take a look. Any other questions and stuff? Nope. Looks like we got all the other questions answered and stuff. So I just want to take this opportunity once again just to thank you guys. Any last minute questions, pop them into the chat box and stuff. If not, I'm going to wrap it up and stuff. But thank you guys very much for joining us this morning and stuff. For those of you that are on our podcast and stuff, please feel free to share this training. That's absolutely one of the best ways that we can get our information out there and stuff. Feel free to subscribe to our channels and stuff. And once again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And as always, make it a great day. And I hope you guys, everybody out there has a safe and wonderful Labor Day weekend. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you guys next week on our 90-Day Mastery Business Accelerator Bootcamp. So with that, you have a great day, and I will chat with you later. Bye.